What is going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. I wasn't planning on doing a video today, but I got an email from a participant in our community, a viewer of the channel and a member of the community here. And I felt like it needed to be addressed because what I feel is happening right now is a lot of collectors, a lot of people in the card community are starting to get frustrated. They're starting to get disgruntled. They're starting to not believe what is real and what is not real. And that is a big part of the episodes I did a week and a half ago, where I had on Joe Perot, I had on Chris Hoge, I had on Jeremy Lee, because I think a lot of people have lots of questions right now, and their heads are swirling. And so a viewer who I actually got to meet at a card show, kind of in passing at a card show, he lives out of state but was visiting the area, and we met briefly. He sent me an email expressing some of his concerns. And I know that a lot of the times when I do episodes, I have, I like to pride myself on production and voiceovers and making things look nice. But this to me felt sort of urgent to respond to some of the thoughts and concerns. And so this viewer's name is Kurt. He said it was okay to use his name. He sent me an email. He asked me some questions, and instead of including it in a Q&A episode, I wanted to kind of go through it more completely because he had several questions, several concerns, and I want to go through his email together. I responded. I said, I want to do a video on this. I want to address these issues because you are not alone. There are a lot of people who are feeling this way. And I want to share my thoughts. It doesn't mean my thoughts are right. It doesn't mean my thoughts are going to answer any questions, but I just want to share my point of view with these particular issues, these particular items that he brings up, because a lot of us are kind of reeling at the moment from my perspective. And if there's anything that this channel is it's an opportunity for everyone to have a platform, for everyone to ask questions, for everyone to share thoughts, for everyone to be involved. And I don't think that Kurt is alone here in how he's feeling. And he goes into a lot of different areas. So I responded to his original email. He followed it up with some more frustrations. And I want to just kind of go through them. And I want to talk about where I'm at with those particular issues. So I'm going to pull the first one up here. And this is the original email that he sent. And I'm going to kind of go through it line by line and just give my reaction and give my thoughts. It says, "Hi, Greg. I know you have made videos discussing this grading debacle, but I have to ask a couple of questions. I hope you can answer or at least provide some guidance." It says, "Have you ever heard of someone taking a PSA graded card and trying to cross it over to another grading company?" I've done that. To start off, Kurt, I have done that. I like the way that old cards look in SGC holders. Now, for value purposes, it's it's pretty clear that over time SGC cards don't sell for as much as PSA graded cards. I shouldn't even call them SGC cards. Cards that have been slabbed by SGC versus cards that have been slabbed by PSA. They they tend to sell for more for PSA for a variety of reasons. And one of the things that is currently happening is not knowing the future of SGC. I have a feeling that disparity might be growing. I'm planning on in the near future, hopefully this week, uh, doing a little bit of a data dive into that particular topic. So yes, I have done that. And when I did it, uh, a lot of my PSA graded cards that I crossed to SGC went down in grade. Do I think they went down in grade because SGC grades harder? No. That's not why I think they went down in grade. I think they went down in grade because these cards were graded by PSA years ago. They were older generation slabs. And because they were older generation slabs, the grading standards and the technology being used for grading was clearly inferior to what it is now. And the newer technologies that they're using, um, they were able to see things that apparently they didn't see or bothered them as much at that time. So I have done this. And when I crossed from PSA to SGC, I knew that it wasn't in the best interest of the value of the cards, but for me, it was in the best interest of the presentation. I think they look better in SGC, and it was worth it to me. And the grades, for the most part, went down. One or two went up, several went down. Next, why do you buy graded cards? I buy graded cards because even if I'm not planning on selling a card, even if I'm not planning on selling it, eventually the card will be sold. Just like maybe I'm not planning on selling my current house, but eventually this house will be sold. And so one of the things that I am always thinking about is an exit strategy. When I buy a car, I want to buy a car that has a good resale value. But who cares, Greg? You're buying a brand new car. Who cares about the resale value? Well, if I buy a brand new car, at some point I'm not going to have the car. And so a car with a higher resale value is a car that is going to be more liquid, easier to sell and get the most for. It's the same thing for me with graded cards. Even if you don't really need a card to be graded, maybe you like ungraded cards, you prefer raw cards, you prefer a Beckett slab over a PSA slab. Something that is always going through my mind personally is, what slab is it in? Because someday it will be sold and it will be easier to sell it in a PSA holder, at least as things stand now. Now, I know a lot of people are going to counter with me and say, but Greg, you don't know who in 10 or 20 or 30 years will be the top grading company. No, I don't. I don't know that. And I don't know when I buy a house if this neighborhood will still be a good neighborhood or if it will be a depressed neighborhood. But all you can do is what you can do with the information that you have at that time. I actually hope that PSA is not the top grading company in 20 years or 30 years. I hope that a challenger comes in and really disrupts the situation. But I buy graded cards because to me it eliminates some of the risk. If I buy a card that is ungraded, that is raw, there might be something that I'm not seeing. There is a liquidity in graded cards that there's not in raw cards. And I'll be honest, even though there are times that PSA does things that I don't like, I'm not in favor of. If I'm spending a lot of money on a card, if I'm buying $1,000 card, which for me is a lot of money, I would prefer that it be in a PSA holder, because at the moment they are the they are the company that the majority of collectors tend to trust. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean I trust them the most, but if other people trust them the most, again, that's part of the exit strategy. So graded cards, I think, are a safer, more liquid place to store money. Uh, and again, I don't care, Greg, because I'm never going to sell my cards. Well, someone's going to sell them. And if you care about the people who are going to sell them, even if it's not you, you want them to get the most for their money. Um, I think that's okay. So let's keep going. Why do you continue to invest so heavily in a business or hobby or a partner like these grading companies are proving incompetence? It's a great question. Um, because I love the hobby, and the grading is clearly not perfect. And the grading has clearly changed over time. And the grading has issues, no question about it. But I I love collecting cards. I love the history of the cards. I love the history of the players, even the players I don't know. I like learning about them. I like finding cards that aren't commonly found and having cards that are like a treasure hunt when you find them, that you unearth them, that you could add to your collection. And there are definitely going to be some eye-opening moments for everybody who collect cards. I personally have had eye-opening moments. There have been many times where, you crack a card and send it back in, or you cross it over, or you buy it and you get home and you're like, you realize, I don't know if this is a legit card. Whatever it is, we've all had experiences where we were not thrilled with how things turned out. But I can't just focus on the negatives of the hobby. I have to focus on the positives. I've made some great friendships. I have some cards that are really cool that I'm thrilled to have, that have a really cool history to them. It brings me joy. I lay awake at night thinking about next purchases and attending shows to buy more cards. Of course, it's got problems, but everything has problems. Why get married because you might get in a disagreement with your spouse? Why have kids because you're not going to get as much sleep when they're babies and they're up all night? The pros outweigh the cons. So the reason I continue to, and I don't consider it an investment of money as much of as an investment of time and love and admiration, it's because the pros outweigh the cons. Are there some cons? Yes. Have the news recently in the hobby made us more aware of some of those cons? Yes. But for me, the pros still outweigh the cons. The pros of having kids and seeing them grow up and seeing them gain independence and seeing them love on each other far outweigh the cost financially, the cost of sleep, the worry. It's the best decision I've ever made to have kids, but there are some cons involved in it. And so I have to focus on the scale. Do the pros outweigh the cons? And with cards, to me, they still do. Would you feel bad if you overpaid for your old mill cob, which I bought at the National, and it was sent to PSA and they wouldn't encapsulate it? The reason, yeah, of course. I think if we buy a card and we send it in and a grading company says it's min size or a grading company says it's altered and you maybe disagree with that, would I feel bad? Yeah, of course. I think that's normal. We'd feel duped. We'd feel misled. I don't think that there have been a ton of experiences in our lives that didn't have some bumps along the road. I mean, have you ever bought a car and right after the warranty wore off, the transmission blew? Like, yeah, that sucks. But what I can't do again is I can't focus on one negative experience or a couple of negative experiences. I have to look at the whole of the hobby and does it bring me joy as a whole? Do the joys outweigh the negatives? And so, yeah, I would feel bummed out. And I think most of us have had those experiences, but we've also had experiences and one of the negatives of that situation where the old mill potentially in this example isn't encapsulated. One of the reasons you would be upset or bummed out or feel bad, as the question asks, is because the financial potential financial return is probably less than we had hoped. But you've probably had a lot of times that the financial return on cards was better than you hoped. And again, we're all gonna have L's, you know? There's only been one NFL football team that went undefeated for the whole season and won the Super Bowl. 1. The rest have had some L's, but you could have some good seasons along the way and still have some L's. It might be a loss, but don't let it ruin the whole experience for you. If I choose to stay in the hobby, what mindset do I need and how should I collect? Collect what you like, collect the things that bring you joy, and the mindset you should have is not on a single incident. If my wife gets upset with me today and is mad because of something I said. I hope that what she'll do is not end the marriage. I hope that what she'll do is take a step back and go, you know what? Over the last 22 years that I've been married to this guy, he's been a pretty good guy. And what he said today pissed me off. It made me mad. But I'm not going to throw that away over a negative incident. That's what I hope. So my mindset would be continue to focus on the sum of the parts, not an individual moment. I don't buy cards for investments, but I certainly don't buy them to lose most of their value either. The egregious discrepancies between all the grading companies makes me ask, why do I buy a graded card? Examples. PSA determined a card's minimum size was not met, so I sent it to SGC and it was returned a 6. MBA graded another 3.5 and PSA judged it minimum size not met. This is a measurement, not an opinion on how touched a corner is. How can a measurement of a card with a known accepted size not be judged by different grading companies and result in the same determination? These two examples have caused me some serious worry, probably because of the cost of the cards. Now, first of all, I don't think every grading company uses the exact same form of measurement. If AI is measuring from a scanned image in one company and another is using a ruler, because for years they used rulers and rulers are not exact. I mean, when you're talking about hundredths of an inch or thousandths of an inch, they're not going to be perfect. And anybody with a brain knows that cards that are vintage cards were not cut precisely. It was an inferior method of cutting cards, and so the cards vary in size. It is a much more exact science nowadays. So I have had cards come back minimum size with PSA and then sent them into SGC and they got slabbed. What that tells me is one is, I mean, remember back in the Olympics, like when Jesse Owens is winning the 100 meters, they would get the final time to like a tenth of a second, right? Maybe is 9.5 seconds. But now they can get it to like the thousandth of a second. And so there have been companies or cards that have been measured with a ruler, which is more like a tenth of a second. And now, if some companies are using some sort of AI software that can get it to a thousandth of an inch, it's going to be more exact, but it's not going to drive me out of the hobby. It is an evolution in the hobby, and I think that it shows it is more evidence that grading companies are opinions because a change in technology resulting in not slabbing versus slabbing is significant, but they're not doing this as a perfect science. The grading is an opinion. I think we need to continue to remind ourselves of this. Now, this is going to go longer than I want, but I am doing this video not as part of a Q&A because I want to be able to go through this line by line because I think a lot of people are feeling a lot of the things that Kurt is sharing here. All right. What should a person do when two grading companies have these types of discrepancies? Contact each and hold them responsible. Most collectors don't have that type of energy, nor do they have the grading company's opinions and attention. I'm sorry, I should have said attention. I never hear of SGC reviewing a PSA card during a crossover and stating color added or trimmed to their cards. I'm not worried about whether it's a 4 or a 6. These professionals can't agree on measurement. I I never let me go back to that. I never hear of SGC reviewing a PSA card during a crossover and stating color added or trimmed to their cards. Is it possible that the reason for that is because PSA has been good at catching those things? So if PSA catch is good at catching trimmed cards or catching color added, why would SGC catch something that PSA hadn't caught if that's something that they were good at? I The problem with grading, one of the problems with grading is it's an evolving series of technologies that are being utilized. And so over time, more things are caught. Um, just like my example with sprinters, how can you compare one um, mile time, not even mile time, one sprint time, one swim race time, one dive precision when the technologies that are being used now are different? It it's not an exact science. So I think the whole misconception here, or the biggest misconception is we are coming in with the assumption that PSA and the grading companies are perfect and they're perfectly precise, and it's not an opinion of a grader. It is like a scientific experiment. But the problem is the scientific experiments have flaws here. They have flaws. And because they have flaws, it's not a perfect science. It's not an exact measurement. Sure, is SGC using one form of measurement that they're mostly accurate at, and PSA using a different form of measurement that they're mostly accurate at? Yeah, but it is impossible to get a measurement even to an exact amount. Just like we're continually evolving on recording time and how long did something take, because we have technologies that can take it to further decimal points. Grading companies aren't perfect. Grading companies are an opinion. My big takeaway right now is that people realize that. I have had experiences. Many of us have had experiences where a card gets a grade, you crack it, you send it back in, it gets a different grade. That is proof. That is proof that it's an opinion. It's an opinion by a person, a grader, a company on that particular day with that particular series of technology that they have at their disposal at that moment. And a year later, they're using different technologies. And a year after that, it's a different grader. And that grader is maybe a newer grader and not a more established grader and not under. I think the big thing here is these are opinions. These are all opinions. This is not a rule of law. This is not an exact science. It's a series of opinions creating an overall opinion. Is that corner have a touch or is that corner rounded? That's an opinion. And that opinion goes into the calculation for the grade's opinion. Opinions that are based on other opinions that are combined with other opinions are formalized in a final opinion. It is not an exact science, is what I'm trying to say. I'm rambling now. Maybe you could, and maybe not be able to answer any of these questions above, or don't feel the need to. My most important question is, how do I proceed? What is your mindset when you buy a $5,000 Cobb? The temptation for me is to sell everything, recoup what I can, and watch the hobby from a distance. I've reached the point where I look at my 55 Clemente rookie card, and instead of seeing a near perfect centering, razor sharp corners, and top tier registration, I see it as $8,500 invested. It's kind of a problem. You're not alone. I think a lot of people are feeling how you feel. And part of it is that the values have gotten high and it's significant amounts of money. And when a card that you bought for $500 is now worth $8,500, it's hard not to see it as an asset. And I don't know if you necessarily shouldn't see it as an asset. I didn't buy my house as an investment, but it is one. When I buy my car, I don't check Kelley Blue Book once a month to see what the current value is. But once a year, I might go, if I were to sell this, what could I get? I think the way that you proceed is, where are you getting joy? Are you getting joy still from the hobby, or is it creating more agony and irritation than joy? Is is the See, we are wired to want structure. We are wired to want consistency. As a teacher, I set up my classroom where they come in every day, they know we're going to have a warm up. They know at the end of the warm up, I'm going to go over the warm up problem. Then they're going to pass in their homework. And then after the homework, they're going to take out their papers and they're going to take out their notebooks to take notes on whatever lesson I'm going to teach them. And I teach them formulas. And then we do example problems. And I walk around the room and make sure that they understand it. And once I feel that they understand it, we'll stop doing example problems. And then I'll pass out the homework. And then they'll work on the homework for the remainder of the period. They know that's going to happen every day. And when they come in one day and there's not a warm up, for whatever reason, every once in a while I don't have a warm up, they're lost. People want structure. We want lines on the highway so we know where we're supposed to be. We want off ramps and on ramps for both directions. We want to know that a red light means stop and a green light means go. But what if there were no red lights or green lights? They were just all yellow. What if there weren't lines on the highway? There was just this big 40-foot wide, you know, just concrete, and we have to figure it out. If what grading companies did for a lot of us, in my humble opinion, is they provided some more structure and they helped us make things fit within lines. But the problem is the lines aren't perfect. The lines are not solid. The lines are a little bit faded, and it's more of a recommendation. When you see 65 miles an hour on the highway as the speed limit, if you knew you were going to drive 66, you'd get a ticket. You'd stop at 65. But most of us might go a little faster than 65. We might go 68. We might go 69. A risky person might go 71. The 65 speed limit is it is the rule, but they're not going to give us a ticket at 66. It's kind of a gray area. It's kind of a suggestion. Going faster than 65 is a suggestion. And that's how we have to look at grades. Grading can ruin your hobby experience if you are expecting grades to be black and white. If you're expecting grades to be the rule of law that are generally uh, universally accepted and universally followed, and a 9 is a 9 and a 10 is a 10, then it would be very discouraging when you crack out your 9 and it comes back a 7. But the card is still the card. If you crack out a 9 and it comes back a 7, it's still the same card. It should still bring you the same amount of joy. Just because somebody else's opinion and suggestion and recommendation was different than a previous person's suggestion and recommendation, it doesn't mean that the card has changed. It means that somebody's opinion of it has changed, but that doesn't mean your opinion of it should change. There's a lot of noise in the hobby right now. There's a lot of frustration in the hobby right now. And the reason I wanted to feature this email, Kurt, which I thank you for, is because you represent a lot of us. What is a comp? Is the comp real? What is a grade? Is the grade real? We want clearly defined limits. We want clearly defined lines. But that's not how things actually work. The grading companies want you to feel that their number is right, but their number is an opinion. Their number is an opinion. The comp is a data point. The comp is not the guaranteed value. You have to buy what you like. You have to look at the overall experience of the hobby and not simply let one experience or two experiences or three experiences ruin it. If I'm having a bad week with my wife, I'm not leaving her. I'm not going to divorce my wife, even if she yells at me 3 days in a row, which she never does, by the way. I'm not going to do that because the sum of our experience together and experiences together outweigh any blip along the way. Grading companies, comps, auction houses, card shows, Pokemon tables at card shows, travel expenses, delays at airports, entry fees are only what we allow them to be. They're only going to bother us as much as we allow them to bother us. I would encourage everybody to take as much of the noise and tune it out and focus on the positives that you've had in this hobby. Because at the end of the day, this is designed to be our fun time. This is designed to be our distraction from the greater noise in the world. And if we are allowing the noise to get so loud that we can't enjoy the experience, then we've let the noise win. Don't let it win. Focus on the things that you love about the hobby, about the experiences, about the friendships, and block out the noise. That's my advice. I hope it helped.